Hello, everybody. This is David Wiedemann, and this is 5 Minutes of Thought, episode number 24. You are what you store. What's the big idea today? It's this: systems store things, and storage matters. What does that mean? Well, I mean to explain it a little bit more. I'm going to follow a 4-step process today. I'm going to talk about storage basics, storage consequences. I'm going to ask, so what? And then I am going to lead us to reflect, and hopefully wondrous things will ensue. Let's look at our old friend, the universal systems model. We often look at this as a kind of a cyclical flow going through 4 phases. I want to introduce now that there are other pieces of the systems model that can be introduced, and some don't flow, some retain. All systems are proposed to you have something being stored in them. Here's a model of the universal systems model with storage in line, as it were, information passing through it and sort of being retained to some degree and passed on. There's another model where the storage is offline. The flow sort of dumps a record outside of its system. What is in that vault-like storage container? It could be anything relevant to the operation of the system. Data on the health of the system, records of any of the steps of the system. It could be an inadvertent collection. It could be something that people don't actually want to store. Let me give you an example. Here's what I'm going to call the universal meeting model, mapping out a meeting on the universal systems model. Input step is the agenda for the meeting. The process step is the meeting being held. There's 3 people meeting each other. Output is this meeting, hypothetical meeting, is going to be a decision was made. Feedback is feedback on how the meeting went. So the famous plus delta is collected here. What did we do well? What can we change next time? Well, a regular thing to store in the meeting is minutes, right? If we took the minutes of the meeting, that's a kind of a record of what happened. That's the storage. And if we reviewed those minutes at the beginning of the next meeting, as people often do, that would be a kind of an inboard inline storage model. If we took the meeting minutes and we stored them offline, outside of the sequence of the meeting system, say on somebody's desk or on a computer system, that would be an outboard storage model. But what's interesting is that storage doesn't just have to happen after the feedback step. It can happen anywhere, and it can be a record of just about anything that's happening. So, for instance, we might take the decision and add it to a decision log and create a storage around that. We might take the feedback on the meeting, the plus delta, and track that in a record of meeting feedback to see how that changes over time. We might actually record the meeting itself and make a record of that. And finally, of course, you can take the agendas and keep them somewhere. A log of agendas. So storage can be just about anything. It can be records, memories. It could be the temperature of an object. It could be lakes. It could be motion as a kind of storage. Knowledge is a storage of information. Seeds are kind of a storage of plant DNA. Batteries are, of course, storage of potential energy. And you are a storage container as well. What am I talking about? Well, of course, you've heard the famous phrase, you are what you eat. I think this is not quite accurate, but it gets at the idea. I think a more accurate thing to say is you are what you store, because some of the things you eat pass through. Some things remain, and the things that remain, they make you. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's not so good, and sometimes that's on purpose, and sometimes it's inadvertent. And as it is for you, so it is for your organization. Let me give you an example of inadvertent storage making you in a way you maybe don't want to be. This is what I call the unilateral assertion model with inboard storage. This model is about a supervisor getting a team to do something. It starts with the supervisor getting the idea to do something. In this case, it's going to have the team make an Easter egg-like product. Supervisor tells the team, that's the process step. The output is the team produces the Easter egg-like product. Feedback is logically information related to the production of the egg-like product. Everything's going fine. And it would go fine forever unless, hypothetically speaking, there were some people on the team who didn't really get consulted in that process step where the supervisor told them what to do, and maybe they felt hypothetically left out, or their feelings were hurt, or they weren't consulted, or didn't feel a part of the team, or didn't feel important, or something like that. If that were the case, they would have some feelings. And this process, even though it was all about manufacturing Easter eggs, would be also manufacturing feelings and storing those. I think I'm wrong when I call this the inboard storage, because I think those feelings would technically be an offsite storage, an outboard storage. There'd be an egg production loop, and it would be inadvertently creating feelings on the side. And because it didn't address those feelings, the feelings would be growing with every loop. So how would you fix this? Well, you'd build a separate sort of reverse system that would kind of drain the storage of the feelings. You would do something like this. That's you starting it off, you with your feelings on your back. It's a backpack. Process, you share your feelings with your boss. Outcome, you and the boss figure out a way to collaboratively design a new egg production process. The feedback is very positive. Best egg production in the industry, and as this loop cycles through and through and through, the feelings reservoir is drained. A couple of key ideas to talk about. If you happen to find storage on the open road, you can be sure there is a system behind it. And the reverse is true. If you happen to find a system, don't give up understanding it until you figure out what it is storing. So what? So what? Here's the so what. Something is being stored almost everywhere in your organization. It's your job to find out what it is. You want to make sure that what you're storing is something that you want to store, not something you don't want. Whether the things you're storing are things you want or not, you need to look for the systems behind the storage. If you want to keep the thing you're storing, you want to make sure the system's functional and working and maintained. If you want to drain the storage of something you don't want, you want to make sure the system's designed to do that as well. Let's pause and reflect. If this triggered any thoughts, feelings, or ideas, get a hold of those, track them down. You may be on your way to learning something interesting. And I always invite you to take the cubicle challenge. If you dare, stand up from behind your cubicle and explain this talk to the guy in the next cubicle. And with that, I think we can say we achieved what we wanted to do today. We talked about storage. We talked about the consequences of storage. We asked, so what? And we reflected, and hopefully wondrous things ensued. This has been 5 Minutes of Thought, episode number 24. I am David Wiedemann, and you are what you store. As always, I leave you with a provocative idea unrelated to this presentation, but it may be the subject of a future presentation. Today, I'm going backwards in time to find you a famous old image we developed called Goodness Over Time. Have a great day.